This is Lisa, the unique, unforgettable coach. This is,
and I'm Scott, the I Get It coach.
And we are Voice of Hope.
Hi, I'm Lisa Mack.
So we'll be here every Thursday at 4:30, and today I'm going to tell you my story. And we got a bunch of cameras here, so I'm not really sure which camera I'm supposed to be looking at, but I'm going to tell you my story. Got to tell you that I have to use my phone a little bit for, because I have a traumatic brain injury and short-term amnesia, so sometimes to keep on track so I'm not rambling, I might glance down here to make sure I'm on track. So my story is really not any different than a lot of people's story. I was born into a family that neglected me. I was malnourished. I was taken away, and I got adopted when I was 2.5 years old. And before I was adopted, I literally was in 14 homes. I can't remember what they're called now.
Foster homes?
Foster homes, yes. And so, by 2.5 years old, I was adopted into this family. Had ended up having 2 brothers also that were older than me, so I was the baby. And I felt I grew up, kids are seen and not heard, so I can remember people ask me questions and my adoptive mother would answer for me. I can remember let me just go back. I can remember when she was not in a good mood or something had happened. I kind of got the brunt of it. The one food that I really can't stand is mushrooms. And so when she was upset with me or with whoever, I always got mushroom soup. And I would sit at the table forever. And because I sat at the table forever, she would eventually come in there and start hitting me in the head. She would pull my hair. She would choke me until I swallowed, by that time, cold mushroom soup. So it was very gross. And I can remember my adopted father coming home after incidents like this, and I'm not exactly, can't remember what she would have said to him, but by that time he would actually make me undress butt naked, and he would beat me with a belt. And I can remember multiple times being black and blue, not seeing any white on me. I can even remember telling my friends, and their friends' parents would see it, but like no one ever did anything. So again, I thought it was a very normal way of life. I remember standing in the corner, because you know they always put kids in the corner. I can remember standing in the corner all night long, multiple times, and my adopted mother in the morning go, oh, you're still in the corner, I forgot you were there, you can get out now. And so it was constant abuse. If it was not physically, it was mental. And then I ran away at the age of 13. I met this guy at church, and so let me back up. We went to church Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday night. So always in church. My adopted parents looked very good to society. People did not know what was going behind closed doors. And so I met this 23-year-old man at church, and we went to a small church, so he had just like started coming and found out he was the brother of someone, one of the girls at church that I went to church with. And he started sending me letters, and we would write back and forth letters. And he loved me. He wanted to marry me. He wanted me to have his kids. So before you know it, I am sneaking out of my house, and I'm running away with him. I thought I was a big girl. Thought I was grown. The movies that I watched growing up were like Little House on the Prairie and The Waltons. Some people may know what those are, some may not. They're old. But those girls got married when they were young. So I, again, thought that was normal. So I ran away, and I stayed with him for about a week. I mean, I was cooking and cleaning while he was away at work, and I was playing house. And his mother found out that I was staying with him. And he's like, my mom says I need to bring you to her house. I got to tell you something. And I was like, what? And now understand, I'm 13. He is on parole. Well, what's parole? And he's like, I murdered someone. And I started getting a little scared. And so we went to his mom's house because she did not want him to go back to prison for having an underage kid at her place. And she had called DFS. DFS came. They did this little interview with me. Again, I was really innocent. I was sheltered, so I really didn't know a lot. So when I got the interview questions, one of the questions was, does your dad fondle you? And I was like, what is that? And when she explained it to me, I was like, oh, yeah, he does that. And he does this. And the truth is my adopted father would come to my bedroom every morning that I can remember when he was working at 4:30 in the morning while his coffee was brewing and get in bed with me. And all that I thought was normal. By the time I turned about 12, I could say things started, maybe 11, 12, things started becoming very uncomfortable. But he was my father, so I didn't know any different. And so it kept going on. So once DFS got all this information, they pulled me away. They put me into a group home, and time went by. Nothing ever happened to my adopted father. Truthfully, is they ended up unadopted me, which no one can even say how that was even capable of doing, but they did adopt me. And my first children's home, I kind of felt freedom. So it was great to be around a bunch of people, and I had two friends, two guy friends. We did everything together. At the group home, everybody knew us as best friends. They knew we did sports together, we hung out together, lunch together, everything was together. And we went to some activity, I can't remember what it was called, but the group home sent us to this activity, a day camp. And our group got out before everybody else's did. So we were able to go walk trails. And walking through the trails, one of them said, hey, what would you do if we raped you? And I, being 13, 14, kind of giggled. Didn't really think they were being serious. And I was like, shut up. And then we kept walking, and I was asked again, what would you do if we raped you? And there just happened to be a bench right there, so I straddled the bench because I was kind of a tomboy. And before you know it, they had pulled me off the bench, which had scraped my leg, and took my clothes off, and they both raped me before the bus honked their horns for us to get back to the bus. I really didn't know what to do. I did walk back to the bus. Everybody was hanging out the windows saying, "Hey, your leg's bleeding," and things like that. I didn't talk to anybody until I got home, and I took a shower, and I started getting like really scared. And so I went to my house mother and told her what happened. By that time, you know, I can remember them taking me to the hospital. I can remember people talking to me, and when it came down to it, it was, but these boys are straight A students. No way could this ever happen. And so I got sent away to another group home. This group home was actually in Arkansas, so I don't think anybody knows this, but I'm actually originally from Texas, so all this happened in Texas. So I got sent to Arkansas, and it was supposed to be a like, quote unquote Christian place, and they would tell me I was a Satan girl, that I was asking for all this abuse had to happen to me. I was asking for all this sex, and I was a liar by blaming my adopted father and blaming these boys. And so I lived there for several years, and during the time that I lived there, one of the staff used to push me up against the wall and kiss me and like touch all over me. I never said anything because, again, it was giving me some attention, and I thought, oh, someone likes me. I had a teacher, actually a coach is what he was. He was my coach. He kind of did the same thing, except for he was telling me he wanted to marry me. And that went on. That went on even after I even left this group home. And then I had a psychiatrist. Who actually knew about the staff, and actually knew about the coach, and who actually knew about my growing up. And our sessions actually turned into sex sections. He took advantage, but as a kid, I just thought I was a big girl, and someone loved me, and he actually kind of, I'm not exactly sure how to describe it, but he worked it up enough where, you know, he had me calling him daddy. And so everybody knew that I called him daddy. And everybody knew that. And then he would take me home to his family on holidays. He had a wife. I called her mom. Actually, it was mommy. Yeah, it was mommy. And when she left, him and I would have sex. And again, I don't think I really knew I was doing wrong. I mean, because he would keep telling me he had never cheated on his wife. He was totally in love with me. He had seen actresses and really high profile people, and he had never ever developed feelings as he did for me. And so it made me feel special. So the group home ended up finding out about the staff, and so very quickly they had me take my GED, and then I had this full scholarship to a university, and I was literally out of the group home in 2 weeks, and they made it very clear for me not to ever speak of this. And truthfully, I never did until about maybe 10 years ago. maybe less than 10 years ago. Then I realized I don't know what I'm keeping all this for. Time went on, and I kind of lived my life, was in and out of relationships, trying to find someone to love me, trying to make a relationship work, didn't know how to make a relationship work. I got pregnant, and everybody told me that, oh, she needs a dad. So I married this guy who was my best friend, who is still my best friend to this day, but we aren't married. But I married so he could have a dad. But the thing is I really wasn't really at the point to be married. I cheated on him multiple times, went through the police academy, slept with probably most of my colleagues in the police academy. When my husband started questioning me, I started getting nervous and worried, so I went and saw a psychologist who told me that I was a love addict. I didn't know what a love addict was, so I took it as it was okay what I was doing. And since I've never heard of a love addict, really didn't think that psychologists really knew what they were talking about anyways, so I didn't even go back. Continued with my life. I got pregnant with my second daughter, and truthfully was unsure if it was my husband's child. Only just prayed to God it was, and it was. But got moved up here to Missouri, and my husband was in the military, so he stayed in Texas until he got out, which was like in 10 months. So I lived here and did very well during the pregnancy part. I didn't sleep with anybody. I did get close to a couple of guys, but there was no sexual, romantic thing between us until I had my daughter. And after I had my daughter, the sex it was something I needed and wanted. And it was really hard for me to say no. Even if I didn't want it, it was still hard to say no. And so I didn't want to be that wife that was a cheater, so I had told my husband we needed to get divorced, and so we did. I got my own place, which became really the place in and out. Men were in and out constantly. And I learned about a company in Kansas City that wanted me to come do porn, and I was like, oh my gosh, that sounds awesome. And I really thought like I had the career to be a porn star. Again, I was really a dumb person, but at the time I went, got paid, literally had no self-esteem, had no value on myself. I felt very unworthy, but sex made me feel like I was somebody. And did that for a while, and then someone mentioned that there's these websites that you can go to that men contact you and you meet up with them and do what they want and they pay you. And I was like, well, that's awesome. And you know, I actually met many of them. It became a very easy way to make money, and truthfully is the way I met my second husband. And I continued doing crazy things. I never could stay faithful. I always craved that attention. I felt like I was somebody if I was having sex. And so it was, I mean, I've been married a few times, but it was probably just this past year that I came to grips in reality that I really was a love addict and a sex addict. And I don't know if people really know the definition of love addict or a sex addict, but they're real. Love is more, you're looking for that romantic kind of a thing, and what happens is that goes on for so long, because in my situation it went on for so long with all the trauma and all the abuse I had endured. It turned into a sex addict where I had no emotions, and it was just an act. And so I this past year have worked the 12-step program actually twice. The first time I didn't take it serious because I was like, there's nothing wrong with me. But the second time I actually took it serious, went to some therapy, serious therapy that someone took seriously, and we worked through a lot of things. But I have literally have not engaged in those activities for over a year now, so I can say that honestly. So that is my story. There's probably more to it, but that's what I can remember right now.
Awesome. Well, thanks for excuse me. Thanks for sharing it. Now, you know, when people say that, when they hear an addict, they always think drugs or alcohol. And there's so many different addictions out there, unhealthy addictions. You know, the food, and you mentioned sex. Now, for an addict, a drug or alcohol, whatever it is, we get help when we hit rock bottom. When you are just done and tired, what was your final? What was like your breakthrough, your bottom, to where you finally said, "Okay, I need some help"?
I guess I think I looked for help multiple times, just was looking in the wrong way. But this last time, I think it was just because for me was a more embarrassment, because I own companies and I was out there and people knew me, and I didn't want it to get out that they really didn't know me. And so and the fact that I really wanted just one person, I really wanted one relationship. And so rock bottom, I think, for a sex addict or a love addict is totally different than someone like you who's been on drugs, that you talk about hitting that rock bottom. For me, it was different.
We all rock bottom's rock bottom, no matter what addiction you're in. It's just it's just some are different. For you, the emotional, you hit an emotional rock bottom.
Right.
But like for me, when I hit my rock bottom, it was emotional, and it was spiritual, and it was physical. But emotionally, you were broke.
Right.
You know, you were beat down, you were lost, and that's when an addict hit rock bottom. And I know that we've had conversations before, and there's times you said you've had to put yourself in check,
Yeah.
which is exactly what we do sometimes. I mean, we have to put ourselves in, because that thought gets in our head.
Correct.
And what I love about doing all this is it's going to broaden people's view on what there's more unhealthy addictions.
Yes.
You know, and you didn't talk about getting into self-defense. You're a self-defense. Why? What made you decide to do that?
So, back 7 years ago, I used to, I still do actually, but I taught concealed carry. And a gentleman who owned a gun shop, who was also a police officer, would have a sign-up sheet in his store for students to sign up. And so one day after a class was over, he happened to actually be there, which was abnormal, but I just figured he wanted to see how I was teaching and if I was doing it correctly. Afterwards, he asked me to come back to the shop to file away all the records, and I said yeah. So when we went back to the store, not thinking really anything of it, he locked the door, and I would think it's because the store's closed, no big deal, we're gonna file. And so we started talking about police work, and we were talking about handcuffing, and I was telling him that's not the way I was trained to handcuff people. And before I knew it, he literally had my hands behind my back, handcuffed. He had choked me. He put a gag in my mouth, and I mean, he pulled my clothes off. He raped me. And I literally, of all the abuse I have dealt with, that was probably the most devastating part of it. And because I really feel like this time he took something from me, and then I went to the point of no one's going to believe me. No one believed that my adopted father molested me, and no one believed the boys raped me. Nobody's going to believe this because I'm a former police officer. I carry a gun. Who's going to believe all this stuff? And the next day, I had convinced myself I wasn't going to tell anybody, and because I was very good about turning off my emotions, and I probably would have been able to get away with it, but having daughters, you can change clothes with them in the room, and when I took my shirt off, I had no idea that the handcuffs had scratched my back so bad, and my daughter was like, oh, what happened to your back? And at that time I was married, and my husband there had asked, oh my God, what happened? And then I broke down and said something, and so I went out of state and learned a program called Rape Aggression Defense and became an instructor, because I wanted to make sure women knew everything they needed to know to keep themselves safe from in those kind of situations. Did I answer your question, or did I go far?
No, you did. So there are so many women out there that have went through what you went through, and it's just awful that you had to. What do you recommend the steps that they take to, I'm sure somebody related to your story and they're thinking, wow, what is the next step for them to do if they want to get the help they need?
It depends where they are, I guess really, but mainly is they need to find someone to talk to. If it's not professional, it's a coach. The talking is number one. You've got to be able to deal with all those feelings and those emotions, and that was something because of all the trauma and abuse I had in my past. I just stuffed it down as another thing that has happened and moved on, and it really took this past year for me to really deal with all that, which was a lot. So I think any woman that's dealing with that, don't do it alone, even though you think you're strong enough. You really need to go talk.
And you mentioned, and I've seen this, you mentioned that you could just shut your feelings off like a light switch. Yes. You could just boom. And guys, she's not lying because I've seen it. But what was explain your thought process what made you decide to do that, and once you flipped it, I mean, what was going through your head? Did you not think about it anyway? That light switch, was that your way of numbing and just dealing with, like for an addict, for me, if I didn't want to think or feel, I just got high. You just hit the light switch.
Yeah, I just hit the light switch and just move on. I don't even think about it. I move on, and I go find that attention, that love, that sex, that whatever. That's what I would do. I'd move on. I mean, I can remember forever if I had one boyfriend and he broke up with me, or I broke up with him, I had another boyfriend by that day. I mean, I didn't go without somebody in my life. So I just turn off, okay, boom.
So you hit the light switch was like me lighting a pipe.
Yes.
Exactly. It I learned a lot today. It because I've known most of your story, but I've never heard it in depth like that. And it just goes back to an unhealthy addiction can cause a lot of problems, whether it's sex, food, whether it's gambling, so on and so forth. And that's what I'm going to like about doing this show, because we're going to cover all of it.
Right. You mentioned a second ago how that I had mentioned before having those feelings still. So as a love sex addict, I've learned what I can do and what I can't do. So like I know through the 12 steps, they tell you to find new people, new places.
People, places, things.
Things, okay? And as a love sex addict, it's sort of kind of the same thing, but not exactly like that, because if that was the case of new people, that just gives me new people to have those romantic things. So it's a little bit different, I think. But I think, like I explained to you, it's still a work in progress, because if I get in a room with just a guy, my brain starts rolling like, oh, he's nice, and maybe we can do something. And my brain does go, and I have to remember, nope, gotta stop it right there. And that has always probably have gotten me in trouble always in the past. It was very easy. If I was around a guy, I could tell you he was my friend, but I was sleeping with him, being my friend. Okay? Right. So that's how my world has been. So for over the past year, I have not been that way at all. And it's actually been kind of interesting when I went on this journey of learning myself and learning that behavior is not the behavior I want, to be able to say no. How at first it was scary, because being a love sex addict, you don't want people not liking you, and so saying that no is like, oh my goodness, they're not gonna like me anymore. But it was also a great thing to build that self-confidence up, to say no, and who cares if they like you or not.
That's it. As long as you like yourself, as long as you love yourself, and you're working on yourself, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks.
Correct.
Yes. That's it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I've seen growth in you in the past year. Huge growth. From we weren't talking as much because you were doing your thing, and I was busy, being the hot mess that I always am. And then when you called me that day and said, hey, let's meet up and let's talk, there was huge. It was like, okay, where did this come from? It was like, some things it was like night and day. And I saw Lisa getting vulnerable, which, when I first met you, Lisa didn't get vulnerable. No, it wasn't happening, because you had that
the shield, that wall.
You had that big mask up.
Yes.
And now you don't have it up anymore. And I still remember when I talked about everybody should do the 12 steps. Remember that conversation?
Yes.
Whether you're in recovery or not, everybody should do the 12 steps. And if you're a good person, you do, because it's just how the steps are. And you kind of resisted on that because you had that wall up. And now that you've done the steps twice, and the second time you said you did it honestly, because the first time you weren't, you've seen so much change in yourself and how you react to things and how you feel about yourself.
Yes. Yes. Most definitely.
Growth.
Yes. And it's wonderful. I mean, I don't know I don't know the feelings of someone as a drug addict, but I know the feeling of the love and sex addict part of it. And I know how well it has made me feel the last year to learn and grow and become loving, really truly love myself, something that I don't think I've ever loved myself. Use the word love, but what is love? I mean, you just hear it so much, and to know that I am actually worthy is awesome.
That's it. You know, it's sex got you beat mentally and physically. Drugs got me beat mentally and physically. You know, so it took you to dark places, because mental wise is such a bad place to be, and you didn't care. You needed that attention, good, bad, whatever. Beat me as long as we're having sex. It's what's up.
Right.
Just so you feel good about not yourself, but you thought you felt good about yourself. There's no difference in drugs. I'm getting high just so I don't have to, so I could feel good about myself and not have to deal with anything in the past. Not have to deal with the guilt, the shame of everything I did. Plain not feel. You wanted to be in the moment.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So, you know, it's all the same. And I'm sure there's going to be people that when they do food, and a lot of people say food is an addiction. It is an addiction, and it's an unhealthy one. I see it all the time, and I've talked to people that are dealing with that. So no matter what the unhealthy addiction is, it all ties in together. It's all the same. It's people do it for the same thing, for protection, so they don't have to feel.
Correct. Oh, I agree with that. There is a lot of addictions, and I think when we first met, we had talked about addictions, and I was all confused. I'm a fixer, right? Remember that?
Right,
I'm a
fixer.
So if I didn't understand something, it was very hard to fix a situation if I didn't understand it. And I think eventually on one of these episodes, we will be talking to moms who've had children that were addicts, and I think that's how we kind of met. So I think in the future we'll have an episode where moms have children that are addicts and how we can't fix them. I remember you used to tell me I was an enabler, and I was like, no, you don't understand. I am not an enabler. And again, I was, but when I look at myself now compared to back then, I was no different. I mean, I played a role of there was nothing wrong with me, and nobody's going to know this side of me, and I'm the goody-good two-shoe.
Right.
And I think coming out and being forward, because it sounds really scary, actually, to know about a love sex addict. I mean, it really is in so many ways for me, only because being a female, now you got to worry about all these guys who think they're going to smooth talk you because they're like, oh, she's a sex addict, so let's go tempt her. Let's go see what we can do. And so it becomes a little bit of scariness of, now I got to watch my behavior and watch my back and watch how I handle myself because now it's out there.
Yeah, but you helped somebody today.
Oh, absolutely.
You absolutely helped somebody today because it's something that, especially more so for women, because if a woman is a sex addict, well, that puts her into a different, okay, she's a whore, she's this, she does that. If a guy does it, oh, that's more notches on his bedstand, and and it's not right. There's not any different. So women need to hear that, you know, there's women out there that are going through right now what you just went through, and they need to hear the hope that, yeah, you can get past that, you can feel good about yourself, and you don't have to spread your legs, or you don't have to do this to get somebody to appreciate you. But first, you had to work on yourself and accept who you were and love yourself before you could move on.
Correct. I had to understand it. I mean, who would have known that there's a thing called a sex addict? I mean, I didn't. Or a love addict. I didn't. So if you don't know it, how can you work on it?
Right.
And as far as my life, that's all I ever knew. I mean, since I was a kid. So how did I know that was actually something that can turn into an addiction?
Right.
So once I've learned it, and actually it was the first 12 steps is when I really started learning. I think it was the last book that I was doing that like turned the wheels in my head. Like, oh, this is really supposed to be about me. I mean, I'm doing these steps for me.
Right.
Because literally, I still can remember my group. Like, oh yeah, that's not me. I don't know how to answer that question because I don't have that issue. I mean, I remember doing those steps, being that way until I hit that fourth block, and then I was just like, whoa.
You still had the reservations.
Yes, and so then reality really hit. I kind of like, I wouldn't say hide from people, but I literally started a new Facebook, started a new life. I have very minimal men on my Facebook. Purposely, I don't accept men invitations unless I've known them for on a good hand. You know, I put myself in check. I mean, I know now. So it's interesting, yeah.
Well, I know I'm proud of you to see just how far you've come in the past year versus where you were at when we first talked, and you were like, no, Scott, no, and I'm going, yes. So, well, awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. So we are Voice of Hope. We will be here every Thursday at 4:30, and we would like to hear from you. So you can check us out on Facebook. I have I know Ferguson USA Talk Radio.
Ferguson USA Hot Talk Radio.
Hot Talk Radio, my bad.
That's right.
Because it's Hot Talk. You can find us there. You can personally find Scott here on the I Get It page. That's his page, and mine is Lisa A. Mash page, and on Facebook. And you can connect with us. We would love for y'all to send messages, questions, topics you want to talk about. We also have links that you can actually come on, use on your cell phone or your computer, and come talk with us weekly. So if you want to do that, let us know. We'll make sure you got all that information. We are looking for moms that have children who are addicts. We would love to find parents that would like to talk to us about their children in addiction, maybe parents that have lost their child through addiction. We would like to talk to people that maybe are in addiction themselves or recovering addicts. So definitely get in touch with us because we would love to hear your story also.
Yeah, because the story needs to get out about people struggling with any addiction that's unhealthy. Because it's and the time that we're in now with COVID and things being kind of shut down, especially with you got a mental illness and you got an addiction, people don't know what to do. So, reach out if we can help you. If you have any questions, get a hold of us and we'll be right there with you every step of the way.
All right, thank you. We'll see you next week.
You all have an awesome week. Talk to you soon.
The uniquely unforgettable coach, and this is Scott Hartman, who's the I Get It coach.
And we are recovering addicts that have dealt with the mental illness, the homelessness, the rape, and we're just out to try to give hope and resources to people that don't know where to turn.
So we are going to be hosting a radio show called Voice of Hope, and it is going to be on the Ferguson USA Hot Talk Radio on Thursdays starting July 16th at 4:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. This is pretty exciting for us. It's new.
We just want to give hope because there's a lot of people out there right now that feel hopeless, feel they don't have any resources, don't know where to turn, maybe feel alone. So if you're a family member that is dealing with the addiction, or if you're in addiction yourself, stay tuned because you're going to get a lot of resources. You're going to get a lot of hope. There's going to be some real talk. And I think this is going to be an amazing thing, and it's going to help. So, stay tuned. We got details coming up, and I hope everybody has a blessed day.
Yes, remember, real talk, real people, real issues. See you soon.